Okay, welcome to today's episode of Warriors Whiteboard Wednesday. Dai-Shihan Miller here from Warrior Concepts. Of course, most of you already know that. Warrior Concepts here in East Central Pennsylvania, online ninjaacademy.com for those of you who are international. So let's just jump right into it. All right. So the theme for the week is warrior respect. And I kicked this off, unintended, with this past Monday's Kuden podcast. And we were talking about the difference between the respect that, mom and dad, grandparents, and teachers and whatnot taught us growing up, follow the golden rule, all that kind of stuff. And the warrior respect that Hatsumi Sensei had taught us very, very early on. And it's not that a warrior doesn't follow the golden rule, treat others the way you want to be treated, that kind of thing, and that there aren't certain levels of etiquette for, not desecrating your attacker's body after you win, those kind of things, right? But there's a common phrase in Budo to respect even your opponent, to respect even your enemy. And so this is a double-edged sword because part of it is that, don't be a disrespectful douche and make somebody want to come and chop your head off or whatever, right? But the other half of it is something that he was highlighting that people often miss in training, right? And that is to respect your attacker's intention to do you harm. And I know that sounds obvious. However, doesn't always show up as obvious in the dojo. Okay, so what I want to do is I'm going to kind of expose or highlight the false sense of confidence that comes from technique-only training and unhelpful uke behavior. Okay, so we'll talk about this from a couple of different perspectives, but the gist here is that most students think that progress means memorizing more techniques or performing kata cleanly, correctly, that kind of thing. But without an uke who challenges you correctly, what I find is that you can end up training for cooperation and not conflict. Okay, because what's the purpose of this stuff, right? I mean, the word martial itself is warfare, right? Now, if you're in martial arts for cultural studies, recreational kind of things, or whatever, sport, trophies, belts, whatever, okay, do that thing. This is not your place, right? So click back, go find some other things. So I'm going to double back here to the uke and the uke's job here a bit, because we want to be clear that at different levels of our training or at different levels of our working on a given technique, the uke has different jobs at those levels. Okay, and again, I've taught this stuff in the past, but it bears repeating because one of the things that I was taught very, very early on was that the best thing that I could find as a student, as a serious student, was a good uke. And the best thing that I could do in my own training with my own skill development is to become a good uke, right? And that doesn't just mean throwing the right attack or whatever, right? But understanding what that person's job is to help their partner at different stages, okay? So, but let's be really, really clear here, right? An uke's job, unless we're doing a demonstration at a local event where everything is choreographed, and of course, we want to highlight the school, want to highlight the system, right? We don't want to be an embarrassment to soke or anything like that, right? The uke is there to help make sure that like everything works right? But an uke's job isn't to make you look good, okay? An uke's job is to help you see what you're missing or to expose certain things. And again, depending on the level where we're working, right? A good uke gives you what you need, right? Not what you want, okay? Now, it's helpful if you want what you need, but that kind of requires keeping ego in check. So a little bit about what I mean here very, very quickly is that when somebody is brand new, just getting started, or maybe you're learning a brand new kata, never done it before, right? The uke's job is to keep things really, really simple, give you the attack on the line at the speed or whatever that you need, and any kind of follow-ups in a way that helps you learn the step-by-step pieces. Okay, I need to get them in order. And then I'm going to double back and figure out the why, right? So once we work out the step-by-step, uke gets their part right, I get my part right. It's kind of like actors on a stage. Then the training starts. That's not part of the training. That's preparation, right? Then the training starts. So then we're going to work this, right? Uke's going to do their thing, and they're going to do authentic attacks at whatever speed we're working, okay? And I'm going to go through the moves, okay? But the uke during that phase is to feel and understand what the moves are doing to them. So if I do something, but it doesn't affect them, right? If I move, but they don't move, right? Because every time I move, they need to be in motion, okay? Every time I'm affecting them, their body needs to be moving. Their balance needs to either be kept off balance and that level of unbalance maintained, or it needs to be crashing. It needs to be getting worse for them, okay? If they're in motion, I need to be in motion if I'm on the responding side of things, right? So the uke needs to kind of highlight, like, when you do that thing, like, I can still, like, I can move freely, right? Nothing has been taken away from me, right? When it is done correctly, the uke is learning, oh, see, that's what that move does. That's why that move now. Cool, okay? So when it's the uke's turn to be the tori, right? Then they're going to be paying attention. Am I doing that thing, right? It's kind of a back and forth. And then there's subsequent levels where the uke doesn't just go through the motions of the attack. They're going to pay attention to, for instance, timing, right? If I move too soon, they're going to pull that punch, or they're going to track me, okay? But that's not the kata. The kata is you punch it straight. The kata assumes that we have it right, okay? We have to remember that in the kata descriptions and in the teachings, what isn't written down is just as important as what is written down, right? What isn't written, like, they didn't waste paper and ink and time writing down the obvious. Like, nobody has ever written down for you, make sure you breathe every day. Nobody's done that, okay? So same thing, okay? So if the timing is off, right? If we're late, the uke shouldn't be pulling that punch or veering off like we've got some kind of force field surrounding us, right? It should be making contact, which is why we start off with slow, soft training. But the consequences of failure in warriorship are greater than the consequences of failure in most other endeavors, right? So we need to learn that very, very quickly. And the sooner we learn it, the sooner our entire system gets the memo, right? And we move, okay? So, but there are other things down the line to where the uke will begin to apply resistance at certain times and whatever, right? So you can gauge those things, right? So it's this back and forth thing, because eventually the tori becomes, see, most people think uke, bad guy, uke, attacker, tori, good guy, tori, defender. It's not what those terms mean, okay? So, but at a certain point in time, we need to flip the script. So the person who throws the initial attack is actually the defender, okay? We're picking up a fight already in progress. And so now what I'm learning is, when that move is done to me, how do I beat it? How do I counter it? How do I turn it around and finish it, right? And then that original tori, right? They have to learn how to counter the counter. And then we need to learn how to counter the counter to the counter, right? Because once we hit that level of soul hole, right, where it's just this integrated, experiential kind of fitting in with each other, it's just performance, right? So we want to stay away from that, right? Again, unless we're doing a demo at a local event, right? So here's the thing: when we only train with compliant partners, okay, we fail to respect the attacker's intent, okay, and that sets us up for failure when real violence comes at us. Okay, and again, back to Hatsumi Sensei's lesson way back in the day. Warrior respect is respecting the attacker or the enemy or the opponent's intent to do us harm. So we position ourselves and act appropriately to make it as difficult as possible for them to carry out that intent in real time. Okay. So during Kuden, we kind of discussed those kind of things. And then I discussed 3 areas where these mistakes happen, right? Are there more than 3? Yeah, I discussed it during Kuden that during this session, I'd be covering those 3 and a few more. So today, we're going to do 5. We're going to look at 5 mistakes, and then we're going to take a look at solutions to make sure that we're not falling prey here, right? Because the ultimate goal here is to identify these gaps in our training, right? In our dojo training, to get us as close to street ready as we can possibly get within the context of training and not beating the shit out of our partner as we would against somebody that we don't care about. Okay. All right. So I think my papers are out of order here. Are they? No, we'll just do this. Okay. So, so let's stay on the dojo versus street reality kind of thing. And we'll take a look at a couple of pieces here. Okay. So dojo reality, right? If we're thinking about dojo training, right? The context of dojo training, mutual respect and consideration and those kind of things, right? Then dojo training, even if we're sparring, is controlled, right? It is cooperative, of course, right? We're helping each other, cooperative, right? And it is predictable. Okay, it's predictable, right? We know what's coming. We know what we're working on, whether we're doing randori, we're sparring, we're doing technique, kata training. It's the same, right? Street reality, just the opposite, right? It's uncontrolled. Right? One of the things I always tell students is that street reality it's chaos, right? The battlefield is chaos, right? So we have to remember that one of the primary keys of training, and this is where kata come in, right? Not that we're going to do exact kata on the battlefield, on the street. We might. I've gotten really, really close a couple of times. But not because I intended to. It's just because that's how it kind of worked out, right? But we could translate kata as tools for helping us make sense out of the chaos, right? That's why we have our 8 phases of self-defense, our strategic self-defense training and response. That's why we have our 5 Ds framework, right, for making sense out of like him throwing shit and whatnot, and knowing where we are at any given moment, knowing what we should be paying attention to, knowing what our goal is to move things down the line closer to things being finished on my terms, right? Okay, so uncontrolled, right? They are resistant, right? The other thing I tell my students is nobody in this freaking world is going to let you do your cool moves on them except your uke, because that's partly his job. Okay, he can only resist so far before he'll break. So you're going to get compliance way sooner from your uke because they know the technique and they know how far they can go before things get dangerous, right? More so than it normally is, right? The guy on the street, we have to remember, he's going to be coming at us with everything he can with all he's got. And if you've never been in a situation like that, right? And I mean inside the bubble, right? That's an experience that either your direct teacher has to have, so that no, they're constantly harping on you about it, or you have to have, so you can overlay that experience on top of the stuff that you're learning. Okay. Otherwise, there'll be a disconnect. Okay. And I've been told the farther away you get from the person with the direct real world experience, the more diluted things will get. And I absolutely believe that. Okay. Even military manuals are rewritten or updated after every major engagement, and they're rewritten or updated by people who survived it. Okay. So keep theory and academic bullshit out of that realm. So training is always as close to real world needs as possible. Okay. All right. So we've got uncontrolled, we got resistance, and we have unpredictable. Right. Now, the more you train, and when I say train, I don't mean the more you do your kata, the more you roll, the more you do counter strikes and all that. I mean the more you research other fight systems, the more you watch CCTV footage and see how people actually do things. Not just one-on-one kind of things, but one-on-one where somebody grabs an opportunistic weapon on the street, or they suddenly one comes to bear, right? Knife, gun, club, whatever, right? But also pack mentality, mob mentality, it's very different. Okay. So what we have are these two things, right? And so what bridges the two worlds? Okay. What bridges the two worlds? And this really threw people off, talking about respect. And it threw me off on Hatsumi since I mentioned it. Really throws people off because they don't equate respect outside of bowing or conventional dojo etiquette and things like that, right? But that is what holds things together. Okay, it's the bridge. Okay, respect. Okay, but the difference here is it's controlled because I respect my partner, and I don't want to do this stuff at speed to them, even in Isuku Sensei's dojo, right? Shit hurts. That's why people don't stay. They visit the dojo, they'll do a class or three or whatever, but they cycle out really quickly, right? And I don't mean because they went back home. I mean, it hurts. People aren't ready for that kind of thing. But there's this difference between a pain response and feeling pain, something hurting that way, and being hurt as in being damaged, okay? It's always a high level of respect. So the teacher will still only take it so far, right? So that you get the lesson, but they're not damaging you, okay? Cooperative, we're there for each other. Yeah, no. The very fact that somebody's trying to attack you is anti-cooperation, right? To the highest point, right? Predictable. We know what we're working on. Okay, we know what skills we're trying to develop. We know what we're doing and what we're working through and all that. So if things go too far, we can go, let's start again. Okay, out here, okay, what starts off looking like a wrestling match can turn into a fist flying or kicks flying or whatever, or a hammer comes into play, all kinds of wild, crazy stuff, right? Or what you thought it was just you and Jackass, right? Next thing you know, three of Jackass's buddies are now either surrounding or moving in, and who else is in the thing, right? Way too many people get used to what I call high school fight mechanics, where everybody gets in a circle and fight, and they start doing that kind of bullshit, right? While the two guys in the middle are doing their thing, right? But the reality in a real situation, riot, anything like that, is that you don't know who around here is just shooting video for their YouTube thing or their Facebook page or whatever, right? Or they're just kind of lured in, like watching a golf show or fishing show or whatever, right? They're just watching, right? And who just wants to see blood, right? Those kind of people. And who are or could become allies to this guy at any point. Right? These are all really, really important variables, right? So this respect we get, right? We stay within a certain paradigm because the training should be safe, right? Relatively safe, right? But we need to respect the fact that his unpredictability makes it uncontrolled. You don't know the setup, right? You don't know how far he's willing to go, how much experience he has, anything like that, right? Okay. He's not going to let you do any of your stuff to him. You're going to have to earn every move, right? And it can change in a heartbeat. Number of people, no weapons, weapons. Are we grappling? Are we striking? Is it a grappling? And then he's, doing the same thing. So we need to respect this realm as well. Okay. But it's a different type of respect, right? It's not, okay. I mean, ultimately it still points to that direction, but it's not, I'm going to restrain myself so as to not offend. This is, I am going to be more observant or on point in certain areas so as to not have my ass handed to me because I took social graces to the battlefield. That's one of the meanings behind our nin symbol. Right? The blade above, right, or the edge of the blade, right? This part of the kanji is our battlefield skills. It's all the martial stuff that everybody gets drawn to. These, right, this shin kokoro, this part under here looks like a, I don't know, smiley face bowl with water splashing out. People told me different things. This part down here, shin kokoro, heart, right? This represents social skills, being able to be successful in day-to-day life. Battlefield, life. But I need to make sure I understand where the skills belong, because there's respect on both sides. Okay. But if I take social fairness and respect and that kind of stuff on the battlefield, it'll get me killed. If I bring this coldness and hardness and brutality into the social norm, I'm either going to jail or I'm going to the morgue. Okay. It's just, again, right? These are the kind of ninpo lessons that we got from Soke along the way that helps to balance everything out. Okay. All right. So moving on. If you're responding or if you're popping things down in the comment section, again, most of you already know this. If you're regulars, I don't have that right in front of me, so I'll follow up with that kind of stuff afterwards. Okay. But if you have any questions at the end of this, if it's valuable for you, pop a comment in. Right. What was the thing that really stood out for you? Big aha moment, whatever. Also, help to share the love, right? There's lots of folks out there that could use these lessons, right? So don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Helps you, helps us, helps other folks as well. Okay. All right. So let's take a look at the 5 critical mistakes that students make and often instructors allow because either they miss them or their teacher, however it got missed. I don't care, right? And it sets up a false sense of confidence, right? We'll take a look at the solutions as well as we move along, okay? So each mistake connects to one missing aspect, right, of this idea of respecting the threat, okay? And again, as soon as we cover it, we're going to follow it by a training principle that corrects it, right? And again, if you're just watching this so that you can hammer some kind of, I don't know, negative comment or whatever at the end, but you already think you're perfect, then do what you do. I'll just chuckle because this is not just stuff that my teachers taught me and I'm teaching my students. I'm not that kind of conduit, right? I'm an ex-federal police officer, lots of military experience. I've whipped musha dori, onikudaki, all these kind of things on actual violent criminal attackers, right? One tried to shoot me in the head with my own gun during a little apprehension wrestling kind of thing. And here we are, okay? So for me, this is theory. For you, if you don't have that experience, I'll tell you something that one of my teachers used to say, okay? Everything that I'm teaching you is shit. And I don't mean that it doesn't work. It works for me. It works for my senior students who have applied this stuff. It works for my teachers, right? But until you make this work for you, okay, shit in one hand, fantasy in the other, that actually has more value because you can use it for fertilizer, right? But until you can make it work for yourself, it has zero value. Okay. All right. So let's do this. I think what I'm going to do is I will start with the three principles, concepts, and whatnot that I covered during Kuden. So if you caught it, this will be a quick review. Take you through those. Your brain will go, "Oh yeah, I remember that." Okay. And if not, no harm, no foul. And then we'll follow up by two more that I'm adding on to this. Okay. So the first one is ignoring distance. Ignoring proper distance. Okay. Distance is mine. Okay. Not my AI. Okay. The A in Japanese, if you see it written out in Romaji, English script, the A is always pronounced like the A in father. The I is always pronounced like the I in ink. Okay. So put them together. I. Right. Ma, I. Right. You want to make the A sound? The E in Japanese is always like the E in pet. So E-I-A, right? So again, right? So my, but my isn't just distance. My is gap. It's interval. It points to rhythm. Those kind of things, right? Because distance equals time, right? Greater the distance, the more time it takes to traverse that, or you have to increase your speed to do it in the same amount of time. So something has to change, right? Shorter the distance, shorter the time it takes to get there, unless you slow way down, right? So what are we looking at here, okay? This isn't just initial safe distance, right? We teach white belts this, right? We do this little zombie or Frankenstein kind of thing where we're standing in Shizen and the arms go straight out, fingertips or fingers straight out, and we're falling just short of touching, just short, right? Because what we're teaching our partner when we do this is the reach for somebody my height. As the height goes up, the reach increases. Right? So why do we do this? Well, it's not because we're going to do this on the street. Excuse me. Okay, let's go. Right? We're not going to do that. We have to intuitively know what's a safe distance that he has to do more to get at me. So I have a heads up on it, right? Now, this hands out thing, we do introduce this to students as well, that this could be the extension of somebody pushing to destabilize you to move in. So it could be that kind of, almost that kind of look, right? But what people will often do, or students will let their uke get away from this shit. Or they've done this, or they've leaned in, or whatever, right? And so they're either overly touching, they're under touching, or they're way out here, or they're just doing it very slovenly, right? Either educate your uke or find another one because they're not helping, right? They think this is just, I don't know, they don't get it, okay? So this is really, really important. When my partner does that to me and they extend their arms, I am learning height to reach ratio. This is important because the bad guy on the street, not going to show you. Okay. So we already have to know when we show up. Okay. But that's just the start. Okay. And then people get the idea that, when the punch or the kick or whatever comes in, we shift, right? We shift offline and he misses and then we move in. Yeah. But if I go too far, not only do I have to make up that distance to get the next move in, to move back in, but if I have more time to see him come, then he has more time to see me do the same thing, right? So improper distance gives him time to see it happening, okay? The other thing that happens here is it actually happens in the middle, okay? in the middle of things, right? Everybody's so focused on ichimonji no kata, right? Uke nagash, and you hit his neck and whatnot, except that all the way in, they're doing nothing that they're supposed to be doing to that other arm with their lead arm. So they don't have his balance controlled. They don't have his body controlled, nothing, right? And so as they're moving in to land that, they could be punched in the face or punched in the throat or kicked in the nuts or whatever themselves, okay? So they're not respecting proper distance at all points, okay? They stand too close. They move too early or too late. They fail to manage the space between them and not just the attacker, not just generally the attacker, but a limb that's waiting, okay? I was just correcting students the other night. We did a little bit with sword, and two people were standing, right? One was in Seigan this way, and the other one was in Dai-Jodan, and they were way too close. Now, the guy in Seigan couldn't reach the guy in Dai-Jodan here, but they could have just bent that knee forward a little bit, turned the edge of the sword up, and cut the wrist. Shit, right? Just as the guy in Dai-Jodan could have shifted slightly, done kesagiri, and struck the sword of the guy that was in Seigan. Bang, knock him off balance, move right in, finish him off. Okay? So again, we can learn the moves and not learn the technique at all. Okay? So this shows disrespect for how fast and how far a real attack or a real attacker can reach. Under the adrenal response, those kind of things, right? As I'm moving in, if I don't maintain, and I'll talk about this next, if I don't maintain guard, either with a limb or with awareness, preferably both, then right, what's the other half of the episode title? Respect the threat or pay the price. Okay. So what's the solution for this? All right, let me change the color here, so contrast a bit, right? So the solution for this is to train with variable distances. All right. To train to understand proper distance, what is too close, what is too far, okay? And we could use things like freeze drills, right? Where either a third person out, right? You could have two people working, one's the uke, one's the tori, and then you have a third person who's watching the exchange, or they're controlling. We often call them the controller, or the teacher can do this, right? I'll have two students doing something, and at a certain point, I'll go, freeze. And they have to stop right there, okay? Or they could just be set up, like those two, the two that I was talking about from the last class. What I had the guy in Seigan do was to bend their lead knee as far forward as they could. No step, so there's not a huge body movement. There's not a huge tell. Push it as far forward as possible before the heel comes up and turn the edge of the blade up. Can you touch the things that hold the sword? If you can, somebody's too close. Now, if the guy in Seigan is the one who's going to initiate, he's the bad guy, attacker, oh, he's absolutely happy the other guy's too close. Okay, so it's the other person's responsibility to adjust that so they can't be taken in one quick move that can't be stopped. Right? The processor doesn't get the physical action or the input fast enough to create action for dealing with it. Okay. Also, I had the uke and Dai-Jodan, bend that lead knee, come down with a kesagiri. Can you intersect the sword? Right? Not like just clipping the tip, but can you bisect the blade? If you can knock it away. And now he's not just fighting that strike, he's also fighting the weight of the sword and inertia and gravity, and his balance is broken, and he gets finished. Okay, so if we're not establishing initial safe distance, then we're starting in a fucked up place to begin with. Okay. So, but again, we can use freeze drills where both partners stop at the moment of potential impact or at critical points to measure real danger zones. Okay. During our Friday uh, masterclass, right? The upgrade your skills masterclass I'm doing this week. We're going to look at a couple of techniques and how, if we're not careful, there's certain points where if we're not covering both physically and with attention, right? If he breaks our technique at that moment, right? I know, all of our techniques are unbeatable. Bullshit, right? There wasn't a glitch in your audio. Bullshit. If he breaks, resists, becomes unpredictable, whatever, in that moment, we're in range. We're in range for the follow-up. Okay. So we have to, if we're going to respect the lineage and we're going to respect the techniques and whatnot, then we have to be able to see things that the past masters could see when they created these things to pass them down to us. Okay. All right. So that's just two, right? Again, we're going to play around with too close, too far. We're going to be double checking on the way in kind of things that if something kind of got disrupted, right? Are we able to, like, have we already covered that box so he can't just take that shot? Okay. Later on, when we understand this really, really well, right? Now, this is in our curriculum, right? In the old Bujinkan curriculum, I can't speak to the ones that are being updated now, but students going for fourth dan have to be able to do these things and control distance so well that the attacker sees what they think is a viable target, but when they take it, they crumble, they collapse. Okay? So it doesn't matter if I apply pressure or they do it, it backfires on them. Okay? It's a whole different level of skill proficiency. It's not just step-by-step moves. It's understanding distance and what he has available so that you can literally hide in the eye of the storm. And so when he tries to move into that, he just kicks his own ass. Right. So mistake number two, let me switch my pen here. Right. Mistake number two is, again, I was talking about these next two. So the first one is dropping or misusing cover. Dropping or misusing cover. Okay. Not your blanket, cover, shield. Okay. Not just in Komai. Okay. Sometimes you do that to let him in. We did a sword technique where we started in Seigan, we dropped it to Jizuri Geidan. He came in to take that shot, and we just kind of shifted off, right? So that from right there, we could do what I just talked about earlier as that mistake and use our sword, to knock his way back so he ends up in a position just like he would be in Ichimon's no Kata. And then from right there, you just finish it off, okay? So sometimes you do it, but what we're talking about here is, let's say he either does a double lapel grab or he grabs me in kumiuch and I break that grip, right? A real beginner mistake. When I say beginner, I don't mean just somebody that just started. I mean, I don't care what color their belt level is. They didn't get the memo, right? So a big mistake is they break the grip and immediately go for things over here. But they're not covering these arms. Like if I hit these, his arms will go dead and he will ask me for the business card of the dojo where I train because that was amazing. No. When I break this, I hold that as I'm entering to create that bubble. I'm covering his arms so he can't, right? He can't do this or get it knocked off and grab again. Right? Because that's what they do out there. Okay. So they'll drop that guard, they'll knock it away, or they just, not use it, right? Or let's say we do this, they got that part right, and then they move in to catch the arm for Ganseki, right? To catch that to throw, and then this arm just kind of drops down to do nothing, right? I'd be more impressed if they scratched their ass because at least they'd be looking like they were going to the movies. Get it? Picking their seat. So we have to make sure that we're guarding, right? Kate, right? Tate. Tate means shield. Tate no kamae. Okay. Tate means shield. Okay. So we're literally putting something in there to guard so that he has to go around it. He has to go through it. He has to do something to move it. Right. It's the point of the arm in Ichimonji. Right. Or Seigan. It's the point of that arm being where it is. He either has to go around it, through it, or deal with it. Okay. So again, we have to be careful, right? People moving in to do onikudaki, right? They step in and his other side, punch his kidneys, punch him in the spine, stab him, punch him in the back of the head, okay? Those kind of things, right? Well, how do you handle that? Well, it's in how you take the arm and when you take it to make sure that the distance is right, right? So even though it looks like a target, he can't make contact. And even if he can, it's not enough to hurt you. It's not enough to damage you. Okay. So dropping that. All right. So again, from the very beginning, kamae is a shield, right? I tell all new students, think of kamae as your positions of safety, right? You are removing as many targets as possible. Those you can't remove, you're covering, right? Those kind of things. Okay, so here students rely on techniques instead of positioning and body alignment. They're focusing on step-by-step mechanics instead of the principles and concepts that'll keep them alive. Okay, they leave openings while striking or transitioning, assuming the uke or the real bad guy, the techie, won't exploit them. Okay, techie attacker, they absolutely will exploit them. Okay, wouldn't you? Somebody gave you a target, wouldn't you take it? Okay, so the solutions here is in, we could do training with what I call pressure testing, right? And that is where the uke actively tries to tag open targets, okay? So pressure testing is one, okay? And it's so slow speeds, they don't have to, you know, be hitting you to hurt you or whatever. If you're doing something and your partner can reach your body, they could just go ding, 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 ding. Okay. Well, I have you, and like in a real fight, I would really. So you're going to depend on speed and trickery, and if that doesn't work, yeah. If he can reach it, you're inside the kukan. The rule of the kukan, that space, is you don't put anything in the kukan you're not willing to give up for the rest of your life, for however long or short that might be afterwards. Okay, so pressure testing is one of them. And another one is reinforcing using kamae as guard. So even if I'm moving in, right, break this, I'm moving in for ganseki, right? This free arm is floating in this space right here until I have that shoulder. When I have it correct, oh look, I wrote it myself. When I have it correct, his arm will move away. But until then, if he slips this, he can turn and take it. And then once I do turn to take it, this elbow lines up with his rib cage and it's about that far away. So if he turns to get me, he will run into that elbow point. There's always guard. Always. Okay. If there's no guard, then he's dying or you're dead. Okay. So kamae as guard. A big problem with me using the kamae as guard framework here is people tend to think of kamae as stances. So a kamae only looks like this. They don't see this as a version of doko no kamae, because doko has to be edge on this way. It can't be like broken like this or a modified hoko or whatever. That becomes problematic, right? Until we can understand the difference between kamae and a dachi, a posture or an attitude and a stance, got an uphill climb. Okay, so let's move on. Number 3, okay, mistake number 3 is losing zanshin or not using it at all. Whoops. Keep my colors separated here. Losing or failing to maintain zanshin. Zanshin is awareness. Where does that awareness go? Right? So students stop mentally when the physical move ends, right? Or they're in their head thinking about step by step. In that case, the uke shouldn't be an aggressor. The uke is going along so you can learn step by step. Okay. The problem with doing step by step longer than you actually should be is then you just mentally step by step by step in your head, and you're in here carrying out moves out there. But while you're in here, your attention is in here, or your attention is on the step move, the catching his arm or whatever. You're not watching the rest of them, or you can't possibly watch his friend that comes in from over there. Okay? So another way that this shows up, it's they celebrate a throw or a lock as they're starting to take their partner, right? Instead of scanning for the next threat. Just because his balance is breaking and he's going down doesn't mean that out of the blue he won't like grab hold, right? One of the reversals for an omote or uragyaku, right? If I'm being taken in one, right, on the way down, all I have to do is this to catch a finger or his hand, right? Or if it's a throw, grab some clothing. And so going into the roll, I can tug and it'll spin me back around. And now my legs or my feet are right there to smash into his kneecaps. Right? So it's not over just because you dumped him. It's not over just because it looks like he's a little groggy. Let's not confuse the shit they do in movies, right? There's 47 bad guys, and then they knock somebody out, or they, lock somebody in a closet or whatever, right? Now there's 46, now there's 45. Yeah, you didn't kill anybody. I'm betting that at some point they're going to wake up and be pissed off and come looking for you. At some point, the numbers are going to go back up again. Right? So we have to be careful that we're not following the wrong quote unquote reality. Okay. So a solution for this is always finish with situational scans. Okay. I did an entire Whiteboard Wednesday on Zanshin. Okay. So we practice finishing, right? Because what we do in practice is what will come out under pressure when we don't have time to think. Right? So finish with scans. Okay? I would even highly recommend while I'm moving in for things. If I understand it and I've learned to use my tactile sense in place of eyes, then I can be moving. The whole time he's trying to hit me, I'm going to keep moving, not because I'm being tricky for him and making it harder for him to hit me. I am, but I'm softening my gaze so that I can look past him and I get a better scan of the area. Because from right here in Kamae, I can see from right here to right here. That means there's a huge blind spot. So if I can move, right, if I can direct him around, it becomes harder and harder for people to sneak up on me because I know where people are positioned. I know where threats might be. I know where there might be weapons that he could get a hold of. So then I steer him away from those, right? Or I steer myself into a position where I can get a tree or something like that between he and I, right? So this is Ninjutsu. This is not Saturday Night Fight where everybody's in an open ring. Okay? So we finished with scans. Okay. This also takes into account multiple attackers, weapons, environment, all that kind of stuff, right? And we end every drill or every technique with my teacher always had us do it as a 3-second hold, right? So I throw somebody, I move to Kamae, and I keep my eyes on my partner and watch whatever they're doing. I don't care what they're doing. I don't care if they're rolling. I don't care if they're getting back up and like, hey, that was a cool technique. For the count of 3-1,000, I'm watching what they're doing from the perspective that anything could change at any moment. Okay? That way, I'm practicing to hold and to maintain Zanshin after most people think the fight is over. It's not over until he says it's over. Or he's non-functional, and so are his friends. Or you're non-functional. Okay. None of us are invincible. We're all easy to kill. Absolutely. Anybody still that has that fallacy that you're training to become invincible, go do something safe like crocheting or something. Okay? We're all easy to kill. Me too. Okay? Second big key in training is one, to understand that, and two, to understand that the training is to make you harder to kill, not impossible to kill. Okay. All right. So we have these. So let's, for those of you who are on Kudem, we'll take a look at the next two. So number 4 is disrespecting the attacker's advantages. Okay. I'm not going to have disrespect here. I'm going to put ignoring, which is the same thing. Ignoring attackers, ATKS. How about that? Attackers' advantages. This is really, really critical in a self-protection situation, because in sport fights and competitions, there's weigh-ins, there's weight classes, there's belt or proficiency levels and things like that, right? So they do as much as possible to make it a fair fight. So people have to have other things to give themselves an advantage, right? Harder head, whatever, right? But in an actual situation, I was just joking with students about this the other day in class. No attacker that is targeting you looks at you from across the street and goes, I think he can kick my ass. I'll go attack him. Nobody does that. Okay? Nobody does that. Right? So I don't care what the height of the attack or the uke I'm training with. As a matter of fact, if I'm a smart toady, I'm going to want to train with as many different body types, heights, weights, all that kind of stuff as possible with any given technique, so I can learn the technique's limitations, and I can also learn adaptation based on the attacker. Okay, so I can learn to adapt to the person and not always fight the same way, because that's my fight style. Okay, fantastic, right? So students forget that the attacker may be bigger, may be stronger, may be faster, right? May have a longer reach, may have hidden weapons. They may be more experienced at real violence than me, right? The guy may be out of prison, and if he gets caught with this thing that he and you are doing, right? That's his 3 strikes and he's out, and he's going away for a long, long time. But this guy's already decided he's not going to prison. Okay. We don't know how far he's willing to go, right? We don't know his level of commitment to doing harm, that kind of thing, right? We don't know what's going to come out of the freaking woodwork. If it obviously looks like I'm a stronger attacker or a stronger defender, and this takes more than 10 seconds. Okay? The rule of thumb is 10 seconds or less, 4 moves or less. Look at your kata. Very few go beyond that. And most of those, it's positional before. But as soon as the engagement starts, 4 moves or less, 10 seconds or less. Rare exceptions. This is not 2 to 5 minute rounds, multiple rounds, because everybody's paying for tickets to see a good fight. Fuck good fights. Okay? All right. I'll see if I'm still on YouTube next week, but I didn't violate some bad use of things. All right. So solution, right? I want to, like I said earlier, I want to vary my uke types, intensity, right? So I want to train with as many different uke types as possible, right? I need experience working these techniques, these skills, these kamae, different distance, whatnot, so I can be appropriate to the attacker that comes at me. So if I do my training right with varying the uke, types of uke, reach, intensity, and those kind of things, the different types of punches, I get it. We start with these, right? They're difficult to get offline of. I understand it's our style, it's classical and all that, but right? What about the jabbers, right? And is he this kind of jabber, right? Is he this kind of jabber, right? Is he just kind of like flicking things out there, right? Is he more, right, this kind of thing, right? And then how does this come around? Is it a big old flailing kind of thing? Is it close in, right? They're all different, okay? So by the time I'm street ready, the chances of somebody coming at me that is a height, weight, build, reach, whatever, that I've never dealt with and throwing common attacks at me that I've never seen, it's really slim. Okay. This is where the work is. This is also where there's fewer students working because it's too difficult. It has nothing to do with rank. There's always something to work on. We're never finished. Okay. So on a very uke types and intensity, I want to train with bigger, faster, more aggressive, right? And I want to add adrenaline surge drills or verbal aggression to simulate pressure, right? And that aggression doesn't have to be like all out screaming. Could be. One of my instructors here, Chris McLaurin, secondary black belt, he often talks about one of my guys just retired from training. It's cancer and things like that. We're hoping he makes it to the new year. But in class, if Sensei McLaurin would stop, ask a question, if he stayed in range and violated that distance thing, okay, Sensei Richard, pop him right in the face or hit him in the ribs or kick a shin or something, right? So right? If you're disengaging from the fight, then God damn it, don't just do it mentally. Disengage distance-wise so that, and then once you got good at that, then Richard would start sneaking in because you got involved in a debate. And so you need to think like a warrior, not like some martial artist who only does the right things in the dojo. Okay. All right. So I'm not writing the adrenaline surge thing down. You get it. And then number 5, the last one is using cooperative uke as a crutch. Okay? Using uke as a crutch. What the hell is that mean? Well, I only train with people that aren't going to like pull a Richard and catch me making mistakes. Okay. I don't want to train with those people over there because they expose my mistakes. That makes me uncomfortable, and I don't like that. So I want to train with this guy over here because he makes me look good when I do things, either intentionally or indirectly. It doesn't really matter. Okay. The other thing that goes on here, some of you have heard this story already because you're around all the time. But I was training in Isuku Sensei's dojo one time. We were working on this one kata, and the partner, I didn't know the guy. He just had a black belt. I didn't see any other, rank or whatever. So I don't know. I have no idea. Shodan, fifth dan, whatever, right? And so we're doing this thing, and every time he moved back into kamae, right, or every time he avoided my punch, right, he was way off at this hard angle. Like I'm right here, not over there, here. And while he was deep, he was also shallow. I don't mean like personality wise, right? And at a certain point, I just said, I'm not here to teach. And I don't even know if you're aware of this, but every time you avoid my punch, your angle is too hard. It's too square. And I'm fighting the urge to kick you in the groin. And he goes, yeah, but I don't have to worry about that because there's no kick in this kata. And my brain went, oh, sorry. I thought we always had to worry about getting kicked in the groin. Because the guy on the street would absolutely kick him in the fucking nuts. Give him a lump in his throat that he used to piss out of. Okay? But here he was, using the uke who will follow the script. I was following the script, but I wanted to make sure he understood that, like, leaving your Johnson open. Okay? It's that kind of thing. All right? So when this kind of thing happens, right, either the uke helps the tori, right, complete the technique. Think Aikido, right? Or they soften resistance. They don't do it the way it would be done, right? or they miss critical counters. Right? I'll walk by students and I'll see the uke missing something, and I'll look at the toady and go, you know what I'd do if I were him? I'd kick you in the nuts, or I'd grab that, or I would have punched you in the throat already. Right? And the student usually goes, I'm glad you're not him. Yeah. And I look back at the uke and I go, see that belt level around his? You can do that against people this rank all the way up to this one. At that rank, you need to let him know that he's in range. He's made a mistake. Okay? Because if nobody points it out, chances are he might never ever become aware of it, and he'll never fix it. If he doesn't fix it, okay? I look at the toady. If you don't fix it, you're going to die. If you don't help him fix it, you're going to help him die. Okay? I know we all have a good time, but which part of martial warfare do people not freaking understand? Right? I know. I'm just the old fat bald guy. I get it. Right? So I love when people underestimate me. Okay. So again, this gives a false sense of proficiency. It's a false sense of confidence. Right? We're doing the moves and we get all the moves right and we take our partner down and like it all worked just beautifully, except we never got called on openings. We never got called on gaps where we could have been taken out just like that. Okay? So how do we do this? Well, we implement what I call the intelligent uke method. Right? The IUL. That's not right? The intelligent uke method, right? In this case, the uke must, one, give real energy, committed attack, even if we're training slowly. I was taught from day one, even if I'm training slowly, I don't go, right? I hunch in, shoulders come up, just like the guy on the street, and I intend to drive through his body. Even if we're training slowly and softly, where it's just going to be soft contact, right? Because there's a visceral intelligence that we have. So it's a body intelligence, and that triggers the amygdala, the hypothalamus, all that kind of stuff, and it creates certain, even at slow speeds, right? So one, I want to give real energy, committed attack, again, even at slow speeds. The uke should react naturally. They don't freeze, they don't fall prematurely, that kind of thing, right? Now, they don't, if we're doing things slowly, they don't overly resist, right? Resistance should match speed. And this is where people need to understand how it works, okay? If one person is going really, really fast and the other person is going slower, so that doesn't kind of match the way a DVD player, or if we're watching YouTube or whatever, when we change the speed settings, like one guy doesn't speed up or slow down and the other one stays the same, or everything either, right? So, but that goes for intensity as well. And then the uke should provide feedback after each repetition, and not just, oh, it's good, dude. Mutual Admiration Society. Okay. So, and then we want to rotate the uke rolls regularly to expose weakness. Okay. One, we want to rotate them so that we are getting used to different sizes, types, intensities, and all that kind of stuff, even personalities, right? But I want to rotate them so I'm not getting comfortable with one training partner. I'm not married to the person, right? They're a surrogate for somebody on the street. So I need as many different eyeballs at as many different levels of proficiency to expose. When I go to Japan, we have another trip to Japan planned for 2026. It'll be my first time back since the whole COVID debacle, right? I'm this Dai-Shihan guy, right? I don't go to Japan and drop the kind of money I drop to go to Japan to be told I'm right. I tell students this all the time. I go to collect no's, because those people are as far ahead of me as my students think I am ahead of them, right? So I need my mistakes uncovered by people that would exploit them if we were going at it. So I don't go to get rank. I don't go to get acknowledgement, validation, all that kind of shit. That's a waste of my money. I could save the money and go do something else with a group of friends who will give me validation, and or we could set up demos and impress people who don't know what they're looking at, right? I don't, no. Right? I put myself in a room full of people, or at least half of them, right, that their skill proficiency is way higher than mine. Right? Really important. Okay, so core takeaway for this episode, okay? Respecting the threat means respecting the attacker's intent to do me harm, right? The physics of violence, right? And respecting the psychology of conflict, right? This guy, I can cover one thing, I can take certain options away. Right? If I'm in range, he's going to hit me with a freaking headbutt. He's going to hit me with a cross punch. He's going to, whatever he can use, he's going to throw everything and anything at me that he can at full intensity because he's committed to winning. He didn't sign up to be the fall guy. Not my uke, the guy on the street. Right? So this is not paranoia. Please, this is not paranoia, right? This is preparation. Okay? If you respect the possibility of harm, the probability of harm, and the absolute definitiveness of harm if you fuck up, right? You'll train to eliminate it before it happens. Okay? You'll fix certain things, you'll learn your taijutsu better, that kind of stuff. Okay? So again, right here, right? It looks different in two different realms. Okay, but if we're going to make this work, then this, to get to here, needs to make sure, see, I line through them. The only way to nix these things is to train a certain way that exposes them and fixes them. Okay. This is not like, I've had martial arts teachers in the past, like I throw this thing, what if he gets out of the way and does his thing? Well, you just have to be fast enough. That doesn't happen. So I have to be faster than everybody that ever attacks me. You do know there's a thing called age, illness, injury. Right? So there's also a reason why I don't train with those people anymore. Okay. So again, right? How do we do it? I respect distance. I respect cover. I respect zanshin, awareness. I respect realism. And I respect the invaluable, the critical need for an intelligent uke. Okay? To keep me honest. All right. So obviously we can't work on all this stuff at one time. So during the masterclass on Friday, right? Upgrade Your Skills masterclass, we're going to be doing some techniques that most people are fairly aware of, right? But the models we're going to be doing, most people should know. But like the way I learned the models, these things were already baked into them, right? Distance, cover, what you should be paying attention to, that kind of thing. But I can see where people might not have gotten those because like some of the earlier videos that Hatami Sensei has out, right? Nagata Sensei doing a ganseki, right? Just gets taken by the sleeve, steps off, does that part of it, right? Well, that's awesome. But he's doing nothing to cut because the uke is just letting him, because it's a demonstration of the base body movement. It's not in fight context. But if that's how we're learning it, we think that's the thing and not part of it. It's the mechanical part of the thing. We're missing a lot, okay? But during this class coming up, we're going to work through some of those things, and we're going to spend a lot of time on getting the distance right, these three, right? So making sure that our zanshin is in the right place, right? We're covering so that if this technique collapses at any point through it, it's still hard for this guy to get at me with a follow-up. And I'm not violating the distance problem. This is something that my Nidans, my Shodan candidates for Nidan, absolutely have to have, right? That at any point in the technique, I can say freeze, and their uke can try to reach with either hand or a foot if their feet are able to move, right? And can they tag it? And I don't mean just like that kind of thing. I mean, can they hit with flexion here so that'd be bad, right? Because they need to know. They need to know, right? So that's what I have. Hopefully I'll see you for the Friday training. If not, hopefully this was valuable. If it was, leave a comment. Tell me what your big aha moment was or the big value piece. I appreciate the thanks and all that kind of stuff, but if you can tell me what you really got out of it, I know it's a lot of extra typing and stuff, but okay, tell me where it helps. Okay. And then I really appreciate it. Okay. If I don't see you for the Friday class, then if you're local, I'll see you for one of the other classes. But otherwise, I'll either see you for Kuden next Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern, or I will see you for next week's Warriors Whiteboard Wednesday. All right. See you next time. Be safe. Train hard.